To understand the process of sieving, things needed: some wheat flour, some pulses, colored chalk powder. Method: take 100 gram of wheat flour and mix it with some pulses. Put the mixture of wheat flour and pulses in a sieve. Move the sieve back and forth repeatedly. You observe that the wheat flour passes through the sieve, but the pulses are left behind. Take 100 gram of wheat flour and mix it with colored chalk powder. Put the mixture of wheat flour and colored chalk powder in a sieve. On moving the sieve, no wheat flour or chalk powder is left in the sieve. Pulses were separated from the wheat flour in the first case, but chalk powder could not be separated from the wheat flour in the second case. The size of the pulses was bigger than the size of the holes in the sieve. Hence, the pulses could not pass through the holes and were left behind in the sieve, while the flour passed through the holes. In the second case, the size of wheat flour and chalk powder was smaller than the size of the holes. This allowed the flour and the chalk powder to pass through. Hence, sieving is used for separation when the components of a mixture have different sizes. Sedimentation and decantation. Insoluble substances that are heavier than liquid can be separated by sedimentation and decantation. Let us do the following activity to understand this process. Activity 3. To separate a mixture of sand and water by sedimentation and decantation. Things needed: 2 beakers, some water, some sand, glass rod. Method: take a mixture of sand and water in a beaker. Allow the mixture to stand undisturbed for some time. On doing so, you observe that the heavier sand particles settle down at the bottom of the beaker. This layer of sand is called sediment. When the sand settles down, or we say sediment is formed, clear water is left above the layer of sand. This process is called sedimentation. Pour the clear water into another beaker gently with the help of a glass rod, without disturbing the sediment of sand. This process is called decantation. When all the clear water has been poured out, only sand is left at the bottom of the beaker. Conclusion: in this way, a mixture of sand and water can be separated into sand and clear water, first by sedimentation and then by decantation. The process of settling down of heavier, insoluble particles at the bottom of a liquid is called sedimentation. The heavier insoluble particles that settle down at the bottom of the liquid are called sediments. The process of pouring out a clear liquid from a vessel after sedimentation without disturbing the sediment, heavy insoluble settled particles, is called decantation. The liquids that do not mix with each other and form separate layers are called immiscible liquids. Kerosene oil and water are immiscible liquids. Filtration. We have seen earlier that to separate used tea leaves from tea, we pour the prepared tea through the tea strainer. The tea strainer has a wire mesh in it that acts as a filter. The liquid tea passes through the small holes of the tea strainer and collects in the cup below. The used tea leaves, being bigger in size, do not pass through the tea strainer and are left on the tea strainer. This process is called filtration. The process of separating insoluble substances from a liquid using a filter is called filtration. The tea strainer cannot be used to separate mud from water. The particles of mud are too small and will pass through the holes along with water. For this, we need a fine filter such as a filter paper. A filter paper is a piece of special paper that has millions of tiny holes in it. The holes of a filter paper are so small that they cannot be seen with the naked eyes but can be seen only through a microscope. Activity 4. To separate a mixture of mud and water by filtration. Things needed: muddy water, filter paper, glass rod, iron stand, funnel, 2 beakers. Method: take some muddy water in a beaker. Now, take a circular piece of filter paper and fold it twice as shown in the figure. Open it out to make a cone. Place this filter paper cone in a funnel. Now, clamp the funnel containing the filter paper on an iron stand. Keep an empty beaker below the funnel. Pour the muddy water slowly into the cone using a glass rod. The clear water passes through the filter paper and collects in the beaker kept below the funnel. The clear liquid obtained is called filtrate. Take out the filter paper cone and open it out. Mud particles can be seen on the filter paper. This is called residue. Conclusion: the mud particles, being bigger in size, cannot pass through the filter paper and remain behind on the filter paper. In this way, mud and water can be separated from the mixture by the process of filtration. Uses in everyday life. The process of filtration is commonly used in our everyday life. For example, fruits and vegetable juices are usually filtered before drinking to separate the seeds and the solid particles of pulp. For making paneer, cheese, a few drops of lemon juice are added to the milk as it boils. This gives a mixture that consists of particles of solid paneer and a liquid. The paneer is then separated from the liquid through a fine filtering cloth or a strainer. The tap water that we get from the waterworks can be made absolutely safe for drinking by using an electric water filter. Separation of soluble solids from a mixture. Evaporation. This method is used to obtain a solid substance that has dissolved in a liquid. Common salt dissolved in water can be separated by the process of evaporation. The process is based on the fact that liquids vaporize easily on heating, whereas solids do not. The process of changing of a liquid into its vapor by heating is called evaporation. Seawater contains a lot of salts. The process of evaporation is used on a large scale to obtain salts from the seawater. Seawater is trapped in shallow ponds called lagoons and allowed to stand there. The heat of the sun gradually evaporates the water completely in the shallow ponds, leaving behind the solid salts. This mixture of salts is further purified to obtain common salt.